Good afternoon, eminent people on the dais, professors, teachers, and most important, fellow students. It is a privilege to be giving the convocation address at as prestigious an institute as the Indian Institute of Science. I will tell you one story about this a little later, but we started our computer business with the Indian Institute of Science. I would like to congratulate the students who are graduating today. I would also like to congratulate their parents who have supported them and made this particular occasion possible. The story is a real story, so it's not a make-up story. In 1979, Wipro approached the newly set up Center for Scientific and Industry Consultancy at the Indian Institute of Science for a consultancy project. We had just set up our information technology division, having decided to diversify into IT. The institute constituted a committee to advise us on what computer we should make. This consulting project involved surveying literature on the computers being made all over the world. It was also a platform for technical discussions, conceptualization, and design review between Wipro and the R&D team at the Indian Institute of Science. It was here that we began to think about what chips, bus, and microprocessor should be used in the first Wipro computer. Apart from the transfer of technology and the expertise, IISc helped build the R&D manpower of Wipro. Victor Jaikaran, the first employee of our IT division, was a MTech student in IISc and was hired as the anchor for the project in the initial stages. Sridhar Mehta from the ECIL, which was a very prominent institute at that time of the central government, joined us soon after. In the first few months of their joining, they worked out of the digital lab of the Indian Institute of Science. We couldn't afford an office. The reality, this really was the birth of our IT business. What is now the globally successful Wipro Limited, by what name which we are known today, would not be so if it was not for the Indian Institute of Science. We have immense gratitude to your wonderful institution. This is our birthplace. Let me thank you, all of you who are here today, and the generations who have built the Indian Institute of Science. I'm also happy to note that our association has continued over the past 40 years. We continue to recruit from your institution aggressively and to do collaborative projects at the cutting edge of technology. For example, we are together doing a project on driverless cars and building India's first indigenously metal 3D printing additive manufacturing machine. It is at an advanced stage now. I also think there are two big lessons in this story. The first one is that collaboration matters more than we realize. What we have achieved is through collaboration. We must encourage and foster collaboration across different sectors, across education, research institutions, industry, civil society, and the government. The second lesson is that the role and contribution of good and open-minded institutions in society cannot be measured in money terms. They have far-reaching and deep impact. We must build more such institutions which pursue excellence in their chosen fields and are deeply engaged with society. IISc has been an excellent example of this, but we have too few of them in the country and we must build more. Let me share with you another story. A few months ago, I was in Uttarkashi district and in Uttarakhand. I was there for a week in that area. I was visiting government schools and meeting teachers with whom our foundation works. You can all imagine the sheer physical difficulty and challenges of that mountainous part of the country. Across small towns and villages in that difficult terrain, in the evening after school hours and on the weekend, I witnessed scores of teachers working together in workshops to learn and improve their teaching. They were investing their own time, they were investing their own money, and they were investing their own expenses on commute and meal. We just facilitated the faculty and the premises. And there was no other official from the government who had made them do this. They were doing this purely voluntarily. When I asked them why they did this, their answer was quite simple, that they realized that the future of the students is dependent on how they teach. And so it is their desire and duty to become better teachers. They also said that the students in their schools came from the most disadvantaged parts of our community. And so the quality of education they receive can potentially transfer their lives. I must mention that this spirit of selfless commitment is not unique to teachers in Uttarkashi. Our foundation works across multiple states in the country, and we see the same spirit across a number of states, number of schools, and number of teachers. The stories that I have shared have one thing deeply in common. This is what I have mentioned before. The contribution of educational institutions to shaping a better world and a better society is unique. A two-room school on a remote mountaintop in Garhwal, Himalayas, and this great institution where we are, with a sprawling, leafy campus, with a track record of stellar research, both play pivotal roles in developing a better country. The pivotal role of institutions in society is certainly determined by the quality of the work that they do. It is not just inherited free. There is widespread understanding of this matter. Institutions must pursue excellence, and it is through this pursuit of excellence that institutions contribute more and more to the world. However, I think there is something that is even more fundamental than the pursuit of excellence, and that shapes these institutions and their contributions. The most fundamental things is the values of the institutions. And when I mention values, I mean what is lived and practiced every day in and every day out, and not merely words and lectures. When I use the word institution, it does not mean people in these institutions. It means people in these institutions, the teachers, the researchers, the leaders, and the administrative staff. This matter of values being so fundamental, including to the pursuit of excellence, is also well known. But I do think it does need continuous repetition. Let me talk about three values which I think are critical to a good institution and its contribution to the world. First is integrity. The basics of integrity are quite clear, of honesty, of truthfulness, and consistency. In the scientific endeavor, there must be integrity in all aspects, with the purpose in the process and methods, and with the outcomes. But we must also recognize that the real test of integrity is in adversity. It is in the courage to stick to the truth at any cost, and the pursuit of truth when everything is against you. Second is empathy and humaneness. Unless we relate to other people, see things from their perspective, and accommodate their needs, we cannot live and work together. But this is again just the basics. We have to have the same empathy for people who are different from us. In fact, the real test of empathy is not with people who are like us, but with people who are different than us. And we must have the same empathy for nature and the world. Around us. We must be able to realize deeply that we all are connected and interconnected. All progress is meaningless if we are not able to reduce the burden of human misery and live in harmony with nature. The crisis of climate change that faces humanity, and you have seen its crescendo this year, is one manifestation of this loss of connectedness. So even for climate change, while we must act on many fronts, technologically, industrially, and politically, at the core we have to foster the spirit of empathy, connectedness, and humaneness. Third is fairness, equity, and justice. We cannot rest till we have a fair and equitable world. The kind of inequity that we have in this world, within our country, within our own city, must give direction to our work and endeavor. Education and research must play a key role in all efforts to such an equitable and fair world. Both IISc and the school teachers I talked about uphold these values in their own ways, but they uphold them consistently. I would exhort all of you all to continue this and to be examples for what good institutions can do for society and for our country. On this path of integrity and empathy and equity, I think no better than Mahatma Gandhi's talisman. It is his 150th birth year. Let me just quote him in full because I think it makes the summary of my talk. I give you a talisman. Whenever you are in doubt or when the self becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Recall the face of the poorest and the weakest person whom you have seen and ask yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him or her. Will he or she gain anything by it? Will it restore her to a control over her own life and destiny? In other words, will it lead to Swaraj for the hungry and the spiritually starved millions? Then you will find your doubts and yourself will melt away. Close quote. Again, thank you for inviting me for this august function.